Hi Chris, how are you?
Good evening, Rod. Yeah, I'm well. Here we are on Monday, the 13th of October for episode 194. And the weather is getting cold. I think I'm just going to go with cold. I was going to say past autumnal, but we are still in autumn, aren't we?
We are still in autumn just about. I don't know when official winter starts. Is it like 1st of November? I don't know.
Oh, yeah, I don't know, mate. No idea, but it's getting a bit parky around this neck of the woods.
It's not terrible though, is it, for this time of year? I got to say I was out in a t-shirt yesterday walking around here, so it's not awful.
It's not awful, but it's definitely a degree or two cooler.
Yeah, that's fair. It's slightly on the parkier side for sure.
Yeah. Go on.
No, I was just going to say, we've talked about the weather. Is there anything else outstanding, or should we just dive in?
Let's dive in.
Let's dive in. Okay, so first up in follow-up, and my tabs are working this week, I'm delighted to announce. For top tip, if you want to try and do this on your own computers and you're a Mac user, make sure you've got another tab open first in the window you want to drag to. It doesn't seem to want to do it if there's just the one.
A weird little quirk of macOS there.
A weird little quirk. And a weird little quirk of Google is that the UK is now looking at them, or at least the Competitions and Mergers Authority is looking at Google about its monopoly within the UK. And I guess we're probably not that surprised. Apparently, they've been slapped with strategic market status, which gives the regulator more powers on how to rein in Google's search empire.
Yes, part of the UK having the Digital Markets Act. Now, it seems weird to me that surely Google's always had this sort of status on them for about the last 20 years because they've always been the de facto place to go. It's I guess, strange ironic now that they're getting this slapped on them at a time probably when a lot more people are going away from Google and using alternative AI substitutes instead.
Yeah, if you ever want to talk about government authorities moving slowly, I think this is sort of the perfect example of that, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%. So it's not a big shock, but apparently they're going to have more superpowers to look over Google. It feels a bit like what they were doing in the States when they were trying to break Google up and seemingly got nowhere with it.
Yeah, we might come back to that later on in the show, but I mean, it's interesting that Gemini is explicitly excluded from this for now. I mean, that seems very short-sighted. Why not sort of wrangle it all in?
Yeah, it's odd, isn't it? Because it's all part of Google. Like, I don't know, either you're looking at Google or you're not looking at Google. Like, I don't know, it feels a bit bizarre.
I mean, I guess this is our government walking a fine line between, hey, the UK is a great place to come and invest, and we welcome all your LLMs and chatbots and such like. So yeah, we're not looking over there at the moment.
Yeah, potentially, I guess. Yeah, potentially.
I don't know. I mean, it's a thought, isn't it?
Yeah. Like I said, it just seems like I thought this wasn't news, but this was already happening. So I wonder if anything will actually come of it.
Yeah, something that nothing has come of, or at least they've walked back on. A few months ago at this point, we talked about Synology restricting their NAS devices to only hard drives that were blessed by Synology. Basically, they wanted you to buy the Razors and the Razor Blades just from them, which went back against an awful lot of what Synology were about or why people bought them in the first place. I think certainly looking at the Reddit forums when I was looking at, there were a lot of people who were like, what else can I do? Do I go to Ugreen? Do I go to Unify? Where do I go now to buy my NAS products? Anyway, unsurprisingly perhaps, Synology have gone, oh no, we didn't mean it, and they've released a patch to the operating system that will let you install any hard disk you want pretty much.
Which is good, but it's only for modern units, isn't it? I think it's like for 25 units or newer. Obviously, some of the older ones do it. I mean, I don't know what they were thinking. Like, I don't know. It just seems very bizarre to me that what were you thinking? There was always going to be this feedback. Surely, I don't know. Surely you knew this, and it couldn't have caught them by surprise. You've seen this with other companies. I guess it makes sense for enterprise if you want to guarantee enterprise, and they've got the pockets for it. But I don't know. I'm not surprised they walked it back. I'm glad they have. Fair play to them, because Synology were well respected, and they've squandered some of that goodwill in this move, I think.
No, I think there's a bunch of stuff there, isn't there? One is, would you trust them again? If they've done this once, might they try and do it again? So that would put me off buying another Synology hard drive. That compounded with some of their security choices of late, the fact that the means of getting in and accessing your dashboard, for want of a better word, from offsite is quite easily compromised. It's sort of a well-known hack to get in there and get at it. So if your Synology faces the internet, that's a bad thing. I wouldn't trust them again. And the last point about the enterprise, surely if you're an enterprise, you get a deal on buying Western Digital, Red, or whatever the, Iron Wolf, whatever the Seagate equivalent of that is, at scale anyway. You're buying good, high-quality hard drives anyway. Why would you buy them off the vendor?
Yeah, true. But I guess though, if you want it to be so secure and robust, that you would spend the extra money.
But you know that is a Western Digital drive rebranded with a Synology sticker on it, and they've stuck a 15 quid thing on it. I think I'd trust buying directly off whoever your supplier is, Dell, HP, whoever you're buying the drives off, or Western Digital, whoever themselves, rather than straight off Synology. And also, if you're a sufficiently large enterprise, you're buying a very large array from Dell or EMC or someone like that. You're not buying a prosumer Synology device.
Yeah, true, fair. I think you've convinced me. And also, we've had this for the last 20 years. Well, maybe not 20 years, maybe 15 years, and it's been fine. Like, I don't know. It just seemed a way of them getting more revenue.
I think it's just fear on their behalf that there are more alternatives to Synology. You can build your own. An old PC that's lying around, will give you a decent amount of RAID, and if you plug in a couple of backups to that, then it's good enough for most small to medium-sized enterprises, at least. And the bigger ones are just going to keep buying off the vendors they ever have. So I just think this is very short-sighted. They've lost a bit of the hobbyist market here, and that's a problem for them.
Yep, that's fair. And I would concur with that. It's a shame, I think, because, like I say, they were a good pillar of the community, and they've lost a bit of that.
Yeah, there's a lot of that going on. Someone else who's a good pillar of the community is Riley Testel, who is the vendor or the maker of ALTStore. So if you want to get your Game Boy Cube N64, I think, emulators up and running on your phone or your Apple TV or whatever, then ALTStore's been the place to go to that. Obviously, we know about the app marketplaces on iOS. He has one within the EU that was supported by Epic, which was good to see. Anyway, he has a blog post out that he's going to expand it. They're going to move out from just being in the EU to being within the UK and other nations where this potential other marketplaces are available.
Yeah, this was interesting because I was trying to work out how they're going to bring this to these other markets, because it's in Europe because of the European DMA, and it's going to come to the UK next year. But what's going to change next year for them to bring it here? And it's also going to launch in Japan, Brazil, and Australia by the end of the year. So I don't know. It just seemed I don't know how they're going to do it.
I don't understand either. Maybe they're anticipating the deregulation, as we've been talking about in this podcast for a very long time. That, we talked about Brazil being a particular area where it does look like they're fairly aggressively sticking it to Apple and saying, no, you'll open this up. And maybe this is what's going to happen. Maybe, as we said at the top of the show, with the DMA kind of having implications for the UK, maybe this kind of thing will happen in the UK as well. So I just think that they're kind of just getting on with it. These are all countries that we've talked about as deregulating or sort of disambiguating the App Store from the payment methods and all the other things that they want. So it's interesting.
Yeah, it is interesting, and it's great, isn't it? I mean, it's great to see that they are trying to have a mechanism, a global way of distributing apps that isn't through Apple, which has got to be the right thing to do now.
I agree, and I'm not quite sure how it works, but apparently it's going to be federated as well. So in the same way that Mastodon is federated, the App Store will be federated too. So you'll be able to publish it on ActivityPub and other ways like Threads and like Mastodon does. So yay?
Yeah. I don't quite know what that means. I guess you could have other clients, like you could have an ALTStore client from them, or you could have a not ALTStore client, and it would get the same feed and bring it all together, I guess. So you're going to have like an App Store network, like you'd have a social network, and you can send updates and new products that way, I guess. I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see this one play out, but it's quite cool.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds innovative, and that's something I think we want in our app stores now, is a bit of innovation. Be it the Play Store or be it the Apple App Store, you visit it and you know what you're getting. Some very poor search that suggests some things that aren't the app you're looking for. You scroll 2 or 3 down, and then you find the thing that you want, and you install that, and then some fairly non-responsive reviews that's this app doesn't work on the beta version, and the developer doesn't get a chance to comment on that. So perhaps putting it within federated media, the developer can respond instantly to updates, comments, reviews, all that kind of stuff, and that's probably a good thing.
Yeah, no, I agreed with you. I think it's a good thing, and I quite like the innovation here, that we're not just doing our App Store globally, we're now going to federate it and encourage others. So yeah, no, it's really good news.
Yeah, something else that might not be so good news for you with your new and shiny iPhone 17 Pro is that the SmartGate, whatever you ever want to call it, the fact that the camera Mesa was being smashed up by chargers and things. MagSafe chargers in the Apple Store now have a little silicone ring around them to stop them scratching the camera plateau. Interesting.
I always wondered why Apple made the MagSafe thing with metal ring around the bit where your phone touches it. Always seemed a bit of an odd design choice, and now we know it was an odd design choice. I think this is a nothingness, I guess, but I don't know. I've not had this problem. I charge my phone on MagSafe all the time at night. I'm holding it up to the camera. I don't think you can really see, well, it's hard to see anyway, but it still looks pristine, and it's not been in a case.
Let's talk again in 6 months, Chris. It's still early doors yet, and I'm sure you're still, even in the back of your mind, treating it a bit like a baby. These devices in the stores are picked up and put down and moved around and abused all the time by all the fingers coming in and sort of shoving them. So I think if there's one place you don't want your phones to get marked up, presumably, as I'm sure some of the devices in the stores end up on the refurbs store. I'm sure the Macs do too. So you kind of want to maintain some sort of level on them. What's interesting about the picture in the 95 Mac article here is that the ring that's been left on the phone by the Qi charger, so the MagSafe charger. So I think that's quite interesting in and of itself.
Yeah, it is interesting. I've not seen it myself. But also, what has always been good about the Apple stores is you can just go in and touch the products. And yes, they've got security, but it's nowhere near as bad as what it is in other shops, in that you can actually feel the thing. It's not got some massive brick on the underneath of it weighing it down to the table. And this looks like the best solution they could have done, I guess.
Yeah, I walked into what used to be Dixon's in Bristol Airport when I was flying out for my conference a couple of weeks back, and it was absolutely welded to the thing on the table. You couldn't pick it up and get a feel for it.
And you can't even get a feel for it, so I think that's disappointing.
I agree. Something else that's disappointing, as we talked about last week, has been Apple's response to the IceBlock app. They took it off the store. Well, we're not the only people that feel like that, and neither is the rest of the blogiverse. This is an ex-Apple executive who actually wrote a letter to Tim Cook, Wiley Hodges in this case, who worked at Apple for more than 20 years, 15 years as the Director of Marketing and Product Management, also saying how disappointing it was that Apple had taken IceBlock down. And when you have presumably very loyal employees like that writing to say things, I feel that's quite a big deal for Apple.
It's not a great look, is it, when you've got an ex-director, writing like that, saying, look, you've handled this badly, you've done the wrong thing. Normally Apple people leave and they don't say a word. So, it's not good, is it? And we said about this, it didn't feel right that Apple were doing this. And they likened it to when Apple wouldn't give the phone over to the FBI when there was an issue and they wanted to get data off of it for a case. They stood by their principles then. Why aren't they standing by their principles now?
Yeah. There's a nice quote from somebody called Joshua Aaron further down, that the safety claim that Apple said about pulling the app from the App Store being a thing. Capitulating to an authoritarian regime is never the right move. Apple has claimed they receive information from law enforcement that IceBlock served to harm law enforcement officers. This is patently false. And looking at some of the footage from what's going on from some of the ICE officers, I can only agree with that. But poor show, Apple.
Yeah, agreed.
Slightly better show, Apple, in our next article. It might be one for you to read from, because you'll be far more delighted about it than I am.
Yeah, so this is cool. So they released iPadOS 26.1 Beta 2, and we seem to be getting a few features coming in this round of betas, which is good, because we didn't really get anything in the summer. There seemed to be literally nothing in any of the betas in the summer. But what they brought back onto the iPad now, on iPadOS 26, is slide over. And I think they've actually done quite a cool job with it. So on iPadOS 26, there was no slide over. On iPadOS 18, there was slide over, and you could put apps in slide over. You could have multiple apps, and this is if you weren't in Stage Manager mode. So that windowing. But what they've done with this slide over is you can hover over the green buttons or go to the window menu and go move this app to slide over. I often use it for messages, because that way I can put messages over there, and then you can just flip it off the screen, and messages is gone, and then you can just pull it back on the screen, or click on the messages icon, and it will put it back in slide over mode. And they've put like a nice little grey ring around it to denote that it's in slide over mode. But you don't just have to have tall skinny apps, you can actually drag the handle on the app and make it wider or shorter, so you can have any sort of size app, but you can only have one app. And whilst the internet was unhappy we lost slide over, the internet's now unhappy we can only have one app in it. I think this is great. They've responded quickly. I can't imagine they just put this back in in the last month. I don't know, they must have had some of this already in flight. I think it's quite cool. Would I like to see them do pages of slide over apps? Yeah, possibly. They could have, you could maybe flip between it if they could come up with the right interface. But it's really good. It's great that they're doing more stuff on the iPad, and it's great to see the iPad iterating quickly. because we haven't had that for a while.
I think this is good, but again, it strikes to me as just how rushed this beta period has been. That this is something that would have been in one of the pre-release betas that would have been out for a bit, fiddled with it, and then brought it back. And now they're bringing it back as like a significant change within the app, within the operating system. So, yay, but should never have gone away, really, and should never have been a thing. Apple could have released a developer note during the development process and gone, oh, slide over's going away just while we refine some things, and then it was back. As opposed to this, oh, everybody loses their minds because slide over's gone, and now it's there again.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And then what they're also bringing in on the iPad is microphone gain control, so you can adjust the gain on your microphone. Again, it's great. They're bringing some features just to the iPad because we don't often get this. So I think it's quite cool what they're doing here.
Yeah, we haven't tried recording from an iPad in quite a while. We had a go when I was in Morocco, I seem to recall. I think my audio recording might have been from the iPad. No, I tried to get it from the iPad, but it sounded terrible, so I ended up with one off the Linux computer. This is good. Things can run in the background now on iPads, although, to be honest, I still don't trust it. And you've got this kind of stuff too. So I think these are all to the good. I should probably, in the same way I did the Android challenge for a month last year, I should maybe try the iPad challenge for a month this year, see how I can do my job on an iPad.
Yeah, I don't think you'd love it, but knowing you. I think it's great. They are adding features in a point update, and we haven't had that in a long time for the iPad. So I think on the whole, it's really good news.
Let's say bringing features back that should have been there all the time.
Agreed, but I'm just happy they're iterating and not waiting a whole year like they've done in the past, or 2 years.
Yeah, I think that's fine. Should we do some news?
Let's do the news.
So first up, we have OpenAI, and we often have stories about OpenAI, I think it's fair to say, between ChatGPT and Sora, although we did kind of glance over the Sora controversy last couple of weeks about their video making thing, but that's okay. Instead, typically if you want to run if you want to run LLMs and you want to run a lot of these machine learning type applications, what you need is NVIDIA chips, and lots of them, and they're very expensive, and NVIDIA kind of dominate the market on that. And what we're not seeing is a lot of competition from AMD. So now, in this story, according to Engadget, is that OpenAI is going to potentially take a 10% stake in AMD, but more than that, it's agreed to buy tens of billions worth of AMD chips, and this can only be good for opening up this kind of market.
This is absolutely bonkers, isn't it? In that this is just another nail in their slow burning Intel coffin, because we were just talking about them the other week, and then here we go, OpenAI, bang, gonna invest loads in AMD, gonna buy loads from them, so we're gonna buy some stock, and then we've just pumped the stock price up more because we've just announced we're gonna buy a load from them. So I can see a world where OpenAI owned AMD at this point. Can you not? Feels like it, because they've got ATI graphics cards as well rolled in under AMD, haven't they?
Yeah, they do. I mean, I wonder where this leaves somebody like Apple, who at the moment are at the high end of this, because only their silicon on chips at the highest end Macs, the Mac Studios, have enough RAM in them, because you've got the shared memory between the computer and the graphics chip. So you don't need to buy the highest of high-end graphics cards to run LLMs at reasonable performance on Mac Studio. You do need to drop $4,000 on a Mac Studio in order to do that. But considering some of these graphics cards are up there anyway before you add the rest of the machine, that's where Apple is within this. So I can understand OpenAI wanting to invest in a graphics partner that will be performant enough for them at the sort of scale they operate on, and that will probably trickle down. The sort of proviso on all that, or the sort of hesitation on all that, is this is going to burst. I mean, we saw the Bank of England putting out a notification last week that they think the AI bubble is going to burst any minute now. So I think OpenAI is probably big enough to do this, but I'd quite like to see OpenAI's performance versus their incomings versus their outgoings. $100 billion on this, on a company that really a lot of the internet depends on, but doesn't actually have much in the way of profit yet, has massive outgoings in data centers, massive outgoings in terms of research and development, massive outgoings in terms of this kind of investment. It's all a bit built of Tower Glass type stuff, right?
I completely agree with you, and there is obviously a lot of concern. There was an article I was reading at the weekend, I think it was in the Times here in the UK, about is the AI bubble about to burst? So it's going to be interesting to see what that looks like. And we listened to a podcast and they referred to the dot-com bubble bursting. But the dot-com world still stayed. It's just a lot of companies had a little bit of trouble when the bubble burst. So it's going to be interesting to see what that's going to look like.
It is. So we'll reference in the show notes, if you remember, or grab it, Chris, this article in The Guardian talking about the Bank of England warning of growing risk that the AI bubble could burst. And How long have we been talking about this now? It must be at least 6 months. We've been slightly worried about the state of this, but yeah, not just us anymore.
Yeah, that's true. The world is talking about this bubble bursting.
It absolutely is. Something else that's bubble has burst is Apple's Clips app, whose time has come, it would seem. Do you want to tell us about this?
Well, there's an app that Apple made called Clips that got barely any love, and they've shelved it after, I think it's like 5 years. It's been out actually a lot longer than we all realise. But they didn't really do anything with it, did they? And it was just all a bit odd. And Apple have got form for this, haven't they? They launched like an app, maybe like Apple Music Classical, and then they do nothing with it. And then they launch another app like Journal and do nothing with it, or Freeform. And I think Clips was a little bit like that. It was probably a good idea, but it just went nowhere. I think, to be honest, most people just use the social media app of choice, and it does all these fun things for them built in. And so it was a bit late to the party, I think, on this one.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. It's interesting. We've had a link in our show notes forever called Apple does not have a Google graveyard problem, i.e. create an app and then sort of sunsets it and then it just goes away. It's because nobody uses the apps in the first place. Google's apps, everybody jumps on Google Wave, Google Reader, things like that. People are really invested in them. I don't think some of these Apple apps have the same sort of investment. So people don't really care when they go away.
Yeah. No, this is like a complete non-event. You know, if a tree falls in the forest, does anybody hear it? If you're not there, no.
And I think, I mean, I used Apple Clips once, I think, to put together a video. It was all right. It was no better than anything else. And you're right. I think we'll see the same for Apple Classical. I think we'll definitely see the same for the Apple Invite app.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that Invites app. Yeah, I don't know. They don't seem to get some of these things right, do they?
It's funny, I logged into iCloud for my father. I was trying to recover his iCloud password because he hasn't got a clue what it is at the weekend, or last weekend. And I get asked if I wanted to set up an invite when I was logging into his account for him. That's the last time I've seen it, and hopefully it will be the last time I see it.
Yeah, I had to log into his Apple account as well, and I saw Apple Invites there too, and I was like, oh, I'd forgotten about that.
Yeah, that's the thing.
But it is worrying though, isn't it? Apple make these apps, they obviously invest in it, they think there's a reason to do it. Obviously they're not looking for monetary returns, there's no way of giving Apple any money for this one app. But then they don't invest in it, and I think they've got a real problem here because they're releasing things and then they're not really doing much with it. Whereas, you know, if a one-person shop created an app, you'd get a lot more iterative updates. I've certainly felt like this with Apple Music, where I do pay money every month to Apple Music, and I know that's for the streaming rights, but the app just doesn't really move on or hasn't really noticeably got any better. It's like, what are you doing all year? Surely you've got guys and girls working on this app. Why is it not moving along just with nice little feature updates? I don't know. I do find it a little bit frustrating.
So when did iCloud launch?
2011, wasn't it? When we had Siri and the iPhone 4S, and it was then Mobile Me went away and it all became iCloud.
And how much storage did we get with our iCloud account?
5 gigawatts.
Gigabytes.
Yeah, gigabytes.
And how much do we get now?
5 gigabytes.
So, no, things don't move on, despite the fact how much bigger are our phones now than they were then? How much more storage have we got and things we want to store in our iCloud drive? I don't think Apple keep up with some of this stuff, frankly.
No, there's a lot that's just, I don't know. I just find it frustrating that they're just not moving on some things in meaningful ways, and they really should be.
Something else that's not moving on in meaningful ways is all the power draw required by the massive energy requirements by data centers. So it looked like the world was going in a happier direction for a while. Climate goals were being hit. Everything was looking good in terms of solar and wind power. However, US data centers have recently started switching back on coal-fired power stations.
Yeah, I saw this. Feels a little bit bonkers, doesn't it? Or is it just me?
I am horrified, disgusted, and fed up. Where is this coal coming from? Are they digging it up in the United States? Are they transport? Is it to create jobs in the United States?
Oh, I've no idea. But apparently, other greener ways are costing way more than anticipated. So it's cheaper to fire up coal-fired power. It just seems a bit strange to me.
I'm pretty sure we just shut down the last one in the United Kingdom, like last year, the one in Nottingham.
Quite possibly, I can't remember. But yeah, I believe you're correct.
It makes me very sad. I read an article 2 days ago about we're about to go past our first climate goal, that bleaching on coral reefs has now gone so far there's probably nothing we can do about it. And I see stuff like this, and it just makes me very sad for the planet and for, generations that will follow ours.
Yeah, why are we going backwards?
I think because one man came to power in the United States. Anyway, before I get very sad about that, should we move on to something that's a little slightly better news?
Yes,
Well, slightly better news if you've got an eye on history anyway. And this is the story that a 15-year mystery has been solved. When the iPhone 4 launched, I almost said S, but it was the 4 launched, we were told we were holding it wrong. So there was a big scandal thereafter where if you covered up a certain part of the antenna, and at that point the band of the phone was the antenna, your bars would drop. And then mysteriously it got fixed, and it wasn't really them giving away a free bumper with it. It was they fixed some code inside, and somebody has been, and they've been comparing the iPhone 4 software release, and they've been comparing what came afterwards to see what it is. And basically, long story short, they changed the format.
Yeah, so this was antenna gauge. You say, you put your hands over it, and it would kill the signal. And so what they did was they basically changed the code. And they've called it the optimistic view that shipped with iOS 4.0, which basically got you to 5 bars quicker. And basically they actually then smoothed the curve out so that it was going to be more realistic and hold you at lower bars. So if you scroll on just a bit further, you can see on that graph there that the blue line is what they changed it for, to just smooth the bars up so it actually was a better representation and less of an optimistic representation of you getting your signal. And this was one thing they announced they were going to do. They've reviewed the code and it wasn't quite right. And I remember they did like Q&A, and they gave everybody a free bumper, because people were getting upset about this. But do you know what? Antenna gate wasn't really a thing. And what is mind-blowing, just you had the picture of the iPhone 4 box at the top of the article, is you look at the bit of the hardware you can see there. How similar is that hardware to the hardware I've got in my hand right now? And this phone came out in, 2010? What a great phone that was. That was quite a phone to upgrade to, because you've got Retina, you've got the new industrial design with the rails around the side, glass front and back. Oh, it was beautiful.
Yeah, it was a great phone. Looking at it now, the sort of amount of glass wasted by the bezel thing at the top where you put your ear to.
The chin and the forehead.
Yeah, were quite significant. But other than that, it's pretty much the device we have to this day. Of course, got rest in peace the slider button. That's now been replaced by an action button is what I think it's called. But it was a great phone, the iPhone 4. Well, I think I went to 4S. I don't think I had a 4.
I had a 4. I remember taking it to Wimbledon. I just got it, and I had it at Wimbledon. I was waiting, I think, for my number to pour or something. But yeah, what a beautiful phone that was. And that was probably the last time we had a really, really cool design that was so fresh. It was really good.
No, I must have had a 4 because I got a free bumper. They didn't give it away for the 4S, did they? Steve sent me a free bumper
as well, but
yeah. Probably in those days. Moving on, and speaking of environmental catastrophes, you and I were thinking a couple of weeks back about, God, they put a lot of Starlinks up there. What happens when there's too many? Well, they seem to lose 1 or 2 satellites a day in Earth's atmosphere. That seems a lot.
It feels a little careless, doesn't it, to lose a satellite or 2 a day? This just makes me think of the film WALL-E, where you have, and when they launch the rockets from Earth and they basically fly through a load of space debris to get out of the atmosphere. I'd hate to think what it looks like. It's just rather mind-blowing, isn't it?
Yeah, there's an awful lot. You think if Starlink is 30,000 satellites and they're putting all these other satellites up there at the same time, that is an awful lot of debris in low Earth orbit.
Yeah, I don't know, it just feels absolutely bonkers, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. Apparently, there's a thing called the Kessler syndrome, which is so much debris clutters Earth's orbit that one collision can trigger a chain reaction that further impacts and potentially makes parts of Earth orbit unusable for satellites. So if you've seen the film Gravity, that's that.
Yeah, actually, do you know what? That is a film I think I need to go and re-watch on my OLED TV, because I really enjoyed that film, but I haven't seen it for a long, long time. I think it'd be good to go back.
It's a cracking film. I went to watch it in IMAX in the cinema, and it looked, sounded and felt fantastic, and I love that film to bits. I like the fact that they've got, oh gosh, I've forgotten his name now, Ed Harris, who plays Gene, the flight controller for Apollo 13.
I can't think of his last name. Gene. We'll go with Gene.
Gene Cernan, something like that. Anyway, he's in that film as the flight controller again, so it's just a nice little nod. He doesn't appear in person, but his voice is there, and it's a terrific film. It's a terrific film. If not, this is horrifying, but the film is great.
Agreed.
Something that isn't great, and I couldn't even bring myself to watch the whole thing, actually. I sent you the link, and I don't think you even started it, is Apple's advertising.
So ahead of us recording today, I have gone and watched some of this, because I was like, what is this about? I remember you saying you couldn't watch it. It's longer than most YouTube videos. It's like 8 minutes long. Apple have done advert mocking Windows PC's blue screen of death. But what a shocking video! I don't really understand what they were thinking of. I don't know. It feels like a home goal.
I am genuinely baffled by this. When is the last time Apple put out a truly good advert? Because we've been talking about how bad Apple advertising is since the press thing that happened with the iPad launch.
I quite liked the press thing. I know it was very bad, but I actually thought it was. I could see what they were going with that one. I could see what they were going for with it. It was badly executed, but I got the concept. This is just horrific.
This is a bad advert. The iPad advert, forgive me, Chris, was bad. Crush all of human endeavour, things that actually matter in art, into one iPad. I don't think so.
But you get the concept. They'd been better to have like a funnel, and it was, I don't know, and you could do it all in your iPad. That's what they're trying to show, isn't it? You can use this iPad to do so many creative things.
Again, run it in reverse. All these creative things come out of the iPad. That would be fine.
Literally, just maybe you should just pitch that to them.
Yeah, that's all they needed to do. And then, if you recall, there was the Apple Intelligence adverts start featuring a bunch of, let's not beat around the bush here. Lazy people who wanted Apple Intelligence to remember their birthday or create them a photo album rather than going out and doing something actually interesting. Or the actor from Game of Thrones doing, I can't remember this guy's name. Tell me his name from a meeting. None of which was actually possible with Apple Intelligence. So they're on a real losing streak with their advertising at the moment.
Yeah, no, agreed. And this blue screen of death, you shouldn't be poking fun at your competitors, should you? That's just a bad place to be.
It was relatively charming when John Hodgman and Justin Long did it back in the day. I'm a Mac, I'm a PC. But Apple were truly the underdog at this point. It's not funny when you're the 20-pound gorilla in the room.
Well, yeah, you're the behemoth now.
Yeah, you are the IBM of the day. Moving on, and just a a slightly worrying story. I remember reading a story years ago that if you had a modem sitting on your desk with the light blinking, a sufficiently motivated attacker could reconstruct what was going over your modem by watching the blinks and filming it. I mean, you're not going to have a great time doing that, and nobody uses modems anymore. But this is a story from the Register about how if you have a sufficiently high DPI in your mouse, 1200 DPI and above, the vibrations could be captured by the DPI sensor and your conversation could be recorded to about a 60% reliability on your voice.
That feels a bit bonkers, isn't it?
A $35 mouse was used to test the system, and they managed to get 61% accuracy depending on the frequency of your voice. Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, that is crazy. I thought this was going to be about actual mice with microphones in them, but it's not. It's very clever, but crazy.
It's extremely clever. So you managed to get one malicious app, and you can imagine the cybersecurity potential for this. 60% is not great, but it's also not dreadful. If you could reconstruct, 60% of a sentence, never mind every word in it, you're probably going to be able to get the gist of a conversation based on that.
Yeah, that's fair.
So imagine you're just talking about your passwords. So you take this and you combine it with something like, that lovely Microsoft tool that records your screen all the time. You're going to get an awful lot of potential information about somebody. Everything they're looking at and everything they're talking about them, that's potentially amazing for somebody who wants to hack your credentials.
Thankfully, I'm using the Apple Magic Mouse here, which hasn't been updated in so long. I think I'll be all right because it's using really old tech.
Also, I think the DPI on that mouse is so low there's not a chance.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's going to be horrific. So I'm good.
Yeah. It's a prehistoric dinosaur. You don't use other mice at work, no?
I do have the Logitech Anywhere MX3S. I got the name wrong. But I like the Logitech stuff because it does the 3-channel pairing, which I do like.
Yeah, as I'm sitting here with my MX Master S 3S thing, whatever it is, then I think the DPI is too low on it.
I used to have one of those. I just find those mice too big now.
I like it. I like the fact it's got the scrolly left and right wheel on it as well, although I was swearing at it earlier in iTunes, or Apple Music as it's called now, because it won't let me scroll right and left.
Oh, that's a bit rubbish. But that bit is a nice feature. The mouse is too big. I sold mine, and I've gone for these. I've got a couple of these MX, like I say, 3Ss because the multi-channel is good.
It's very handy if you look at wide data quite a lot of the time. Moving on and sticking with data breaches, Red Hat is not having a great time. Red Hat is a data breach that actually consists of downstream suppliers as well. So say, for example, your enterprise has a contract with Red Hat to manage your open source software stack or any sort of kernels or servers you're running. If they have a connection ability into your corporation in order to manage those, which is fairly normal in most enterprises. Certainly when I worked in the NHS, and this is well out of date, I feel safe doing this, 20 plus years ago, we would have contracts with medical systems vendors to be able to dial in on a very limited basis to have access to those systems, Philips Medical Systems and others. So Red Hat having this kind of information doesn't really surprise me. Anyway, this may have got out as part of the Red Hat breach, and that is a very bad thing indeed.
That is not good, is it? There's a lot of breaches. They don't seem to be going anywhere, do they? We seem to be reporting on them more and more.
Yeah, I don't think this is going to go away, and we know that the LLMs, ChatGPTs, can actually be persuaded to assist with these kinds of breaches. So it's a really difficult world out there, folks, and I'm not surprised, really, that big companies, who have we talked about this year? Jaguar Land Rover, Red Hat, Harrods, Marks & Spencer's, the Co-op, I could keep going, have all been broken into. The American government was putting their credentials on unsafe servers as well. So, yeah, it's dangerous times.
Yeah, agreed. And I don't know, you'd have thought people might have learned by now.
And apparently, you have some breaking news for us.
Yeah, it's just one I chucked in at the last minute. Apparently, Apple TV Plus is just going to be named Apple TV, so we can have more confusion with the hardware and the app. So you're going to have Apple TV in the Apple TV app on the Apple TV box. Fantastic. So there you go.
I hadn't seen this.
No, it's literally just come out as we started recording, and I just popped it in there. But I was just going on the Apple One page, because on Apple One you get iCloud Plus, Apple TV Plus, you get Apple Fitness Plus and Apple News Plus. They're all the Plus ones, and you get Apple Arcade and Apple Music. And I did think it was odd they didn't move Apple Music and Apple Arcade to have some form of plus in their name, but it feels like they're going the other way, which kind of makes sense, because the plus always looks a bit messy, doesn't it?
Yeah, when I speak to people who don't have Apple TV about you should be watching Slow Horses or For All Mankind or something like that, they say, where do I get that? And I say, it's on Apple TV. And they go, oh, it's on Apple. And I go, no, it's on Apple TV. Oh, Apple. So I think there's still a lot of confusion. I mean, it confuses us enough as Apple types. It must confuse non-Apple types even more.
Agreed. And I think where they were slow to get it on other devices, people still think you need some form of Apple hardware to watch it. I'm glad they're dropping the plus. I never really liked it. Apparently it's going to come with vibrant new branding. I wonder if this is going to be part of the 26.1 update that will be coming, because they're going to have to go through all the apps and rename it and the web stuff. So there you go. Anyway, that was it.
Vibrant new branding. Does that mean they put the colours back on the Apple logo, or does that mean it's all liquid glass and you can't see anything?
I'll be honest, the Apple TV branding has generally been a bit dull. It's been very Sony-esque with the bong that you get when it starts and the look and the feel. But even Sony had like a nice lens flare on it or something. So I think it'll be good if they do something with it.
I think it's more HBO than Sony. I think they've gone for that the sort of static that HBO used to do at the start.
Yeah, maybe. But it is just a bit dull though, isn't it?
Well, we're talking about it anyway, so let's stick with media, I think is probably the right thing to do here.
Look at that, beautiful.
Beautiful transition. It's straight into media. This is an article in Deadline that apparently Apple is going to postpone the Jessica Chastain thriller, The Savant, based on current events. So we talked about this before when it was being postponed. We theorised it was to do with the shooting of Charlie Kirk, and it seems, given that's ongoing at the moment, that, it's relevant.
Yeah, it's a shame, isn't it? Because she's a fantastic actress. I'd be interested to see this, but I completely understand there's a time and a place to broadcast things, and they should show some sensitivity.
Yeah, they should. At the same time, maybe it could add something to the discourse. I think what they're worried about is maybe the reaction of maybe some of the more extreme people on both sides of this. I think there's problems on the left and the right of this particular issue, and the assassination of anybody should never be condoned, or should be condemned, never condoned. So I think that's all right, and maybe this would have something to say in that. So I think it's worrying and upsetting that almost at some point it becomes a censorship of media if you're saying it's not going to show up, as opposed to it's just coming later. Coming later was fine. It might not be coming.
Right. Okay. Got you now. I think they should still air it, but just air it and release a press release at the same time. Look, we took the decision to pause it to be sensitive to the situation, but the work is complete, and we think people should watch it.
I'd agree with that. So anyway, I mean, it is a concern. Moving on, something that's not a concern. I didn't get any of my Bond watches in this week, but I've done quite well watching things, I must say. And one of the things I've managed to watch is Hot Fuzz, which is, the more I think about it, it's definitely my top 3 films of all time, I think.
Now, I've rewatched this quite recently. What a film.
It's a great film.
I did smile at the weekend because my youngest son told, I think, my brother to jog on. And I said to my youngest son, have you seen Hot Fuzz? And he was like, no, Dad. And I was like, we must watch Hot Fuzz. Do you think it's suitable for a 12-year-old? I think it'd be all right.
Oh, there's a couple of quite gory bits.
There are a few gory bits. You're right, aren't there? Especially
Particularly, yeah, the church steeple falling on the journalist's head is
and the spike at the end in the model village.
Yeah, there's a couple of really quite gory bits in Hot Fuzz, and some choice language and some sexual beyond innuendo.
They watched Clarkson's Farm. I think we've covered all language and sexual innuendo.
Yeah, all right, maybe. However, having said all that, it's a terrific film. It's one of the few films I can watch over and over and over and always find something new in. And both the critics and the audience agree with me on this one on Rotten Tomatoes. They're both around the 90% mark. It's
a bit Back to the Future 1-esque in that it's a near perfect film.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. There's very few films that I would put, and it is that film that you can always find a reference for that fits into almost any conversation you're having.
Such a good film. It's so good. It's fantastic.
The Cornetto trilogy, all three of them are good. Shaun of the Dead is outstanding. Hot Fuzz is absolutely excellent. Unfortunately, The World's End is slightly less good, but still has a few good moments.
It starts well, World's End, and then it all goes a bit weird.
As a Sisters of Mercy fan, I like the fact that a film exists where somebody's wearing the Sisters of Mercy necklace and T-shirt most of the way through that. And the obscure band I loved from the late 80s, early 90s, it's just nice to get something in media.
Fair enough. Obviously, I didn't notice that they had Sisters of Mercy stuff.
They even managed to use... Oh my gosh, my camera's gone completely mad. They even managed to use one of the songs right at the end, but Edgar Wright famously struggled to find a Sisters of Mercy song that was appropriate.
What a director.
What a director, what a film, and genuinely it's up there. Something else I've managed to watch as I struggle to get my camera to pay attention to me, sorry listeners, the joys of running two sorts of media, is I've finished the current season, which is season 4 of Star Trek Strange New Worlds. If you've never watched any Star Trek, I would genuinely say go and watch Star Trek Strange New Worlds as your starter for 10. Not only does the captain have the best hair, and I have an extreme man crush on Anson Mount because of this hair. I think I could pull it off myself if I could grow it so long.
Yeah, you should 100% grow your hair like that.
I think I could do it. I mean, it's not quite Hair Force 1, but it's possibly better, actually. The critics agree with me, 95% from the critics and 70% on the Tomato-ometer. But genuinely, if you've never done any Star Trek, this is the place to start. It's good stories, well told, very funny, amazing special effects. The special effects in this are something that, frankly, if you go back and you watch the Star Trek films, the J.J. Abrams films from the 90s, this looks better.
I think you mean the Star Trek films from the 2000s or something.
2000s, I do mean from the 2000s.
I have seen those. I've never seen any of the TV shows.
I would say go off and give this a go. I think it would make you a Trekkie.
Okay.
This is a big list of stuff I've watched at the moment, but have you seen the new Superman film? Came out earlier this year.
I have not, but I have seen it on the Apple TV shop, and it's on my list.
I think it's really good. I think it's back to the sort of the first Christopher Reeve films. They are very honouring of that. The soundtrack is definitely the John Williams score brought up to date. So if you know that score from back in the day, and the main actor, I want to call him David Cornsweet. Like why can't I see that? I was right. David Cornsweet is absolutely perfect as Superman.
No, I do want to watch this. I've missed all the ones that have come out in the middle, but my friend, when I was at primary school, loved Superman, so we watched a lot of Superman films, the original Christopher Reeve trilogy, all 4 quadrilogy, and I feel like I should go back and A, watch those. I've been thinking about this because I haven't seen them in a long time, but B, I'd like to watch this, so it's high up the list. Hopefully it'll get towards the top.
The thing that sort of sold it to me is that Superman always felt like an optimistic character to me. You know, it's very much that being the best that somebody can be and being there for the little guy and being there. And the Zack Snyder films were absolutely not that. It was he'd seen Batman once and wanted to make everything dark, and Superman was killing people and he was a bit tortured and all the rest of it. And I'm throwing no shade at Henry Cavill. Henry Cavill is a terrific Superman, but the stories and the films let him down. This is very, very good. And James Gunn is a very reliable director. He gets the fun. He knows about soundtracks. He's good at doing quippy, fun stuff while actually getting some serious emotion across as well. He does a great job. The actor's great. Nicholas Hoult is in it. Nicholas Hoult is always excellent as Lex Luthor. And the bit of casting that took me by surprise, I was sitting there thinking, I know the person playing Lois Lane, but I can't think where I've seen her. And it's Rachel Borshannon, who, if you've seen The Fabulous Miss Maisel on Amazon Prime, where she's terrific in, is Lois Lane in that. So it's a really well done film.
Right, then it's definitely gone up the list, and 90% on the popcorn meter. Fantastic.
Yep, well worth a watch. Sticking with my superhero thing, you can tell I've had a little bit of time on my hands recently to get some actually media watching it, is Thunderbolts. So this is Marvel kind of bit of returning to some decent films. They've had a very poor period. I think the last 4 or 5 films, actually anything since the last James Gunn film. The last James Gunn film was Guardians of the Galaxy 3 before he switched to DC, have been, I won't call them drivel, but they haven't been very good. Not very engaging, not very interesting, and an over-reliance on, I think, what Hollywood calls the sky beam. So when the aliens are attacking or anything's going wrong or the robots are punching each other, it all comes down to the sky beam. And that's not in this. This is just a more solid ensemble piece of bringing some, fairly different characters together who... doesn't really matter if you haven't seen the media they came from, but it's well done. And once again, the critics and the audience agree with me. This was a solid Marvel superhero film.
Yeah, this is on my list too. I did play the trailer to my son, not keen, so it's one I think I'm going to have to watch without him. But I've been trying to advance his film awareness. So, yep, this is up the list too, but it feels like Superman first and then maybe this.
Superman for that, but this actually deals with something a bit more human, about anxiety and depression and where people are. And I think that sort of more adult tone, where it isn't always necessarily about robots bashing each other, I think a grown-up is going to get more than a kid. So I'm not surprised it might not have played quite so well to the childhood audience, but I think anybody who's had to struggle with a little bit of that kind of stuff in their lives, I think it's quite nice to see that represented in a fairly serious way on the screen. And they do it in a good way.
Okay, fair enough.
The Materialists.
Yeah, so I seem to have 2 rom-coms in my list this week. I don't know, I can't explain why. So I did watch The Materialists because I thought the cast looked interesting. It's got
Pedro Pascal.
Pedro Pascal in it. It's got Chris Pine in it and Dakota Johnson. 66% they've given it. I think that's generous. It was quite slow going. It was an interesting concept, but just not fun. Just didn't really do it for me. But I watched it. I forged on nonetheless because, but it was just, a little disappointing, I must confess. That's a film.
When I saw the next 2 films, this film and the next one on your list, I was quite surprised, Chris. I didn't have you down as a rom-com kind of guy.
Not overly. I don't know why. I fancied watching the next one, which we're going to get to now, I think, because The Materialist was disappointing. But it's weird that The Materialist is out and All of You is out on Apple TV Plus. I'm going to say Plus for now. And All of You is done by Brett Goldstein, who plays Coach Beard in Ted Lasso.
No, he doesn't. He's Roy Kent.
He's Roy Kent in Ted Lasso. But he's produced it. I think he wrote some of it. He's acting in it. And I thought I really like him, so I'd watch this. But it's actually a similar vein to The Materialists in a way of, you've got a couple wanting to be together, but they've got other parties interested. And it's all about finding your perfect partner that you're going to be with forever. Now, All of You sets slightly in the future in that there's a scientific way they can find out your perfect partner. But the rest of it's pretty much in current day. But what was odd about it is they had a futuristic car or two, which was just a bit odd that everything else was more or less current day, but other than the algorithm to find your perfect partner and a couple of weird modern cars. I just didn't really understand why they did the modern car thing. Better than Materialists, it was okay. But they're all just a bit predictable, aren't they? But I thought, on the whole, it was quite well done.
Yeah, Apple were pushing this quite hard. I saw the advert when I logged in to my Apple TV at some point. The physical hardware device, not the software platform or whatever else. And I was a bit like, that looks entirely predictable. I can see what's going to happen here.
Predictable. I thought they did it well. I thought they landed it okay.
Okay, I mean, on the other side, well done for trying to, venture out. I mean, I recommended Mean Girls last week. I've obviously inspired something for you to explore another side of your personality here, Chris. This is good.
So Mean Girls is lined up. That's also in the hopper along with Superman. I have though watched Office Space that you recommended last week. I only just finished it at lunchtime today, and actually quite enjoyed it. I'm not sure if I've seen it before, but weird seeing Jennifer Aniston in quite a small part of a film rather than being the leading lady. But equally, it was probably at a time when she was nearly at her peak, because it was like well, not her peak, but really on that massive Friends trajectory, because it came out in '99. But actually, it was quite an interesting film for somebody who's worked in a lot of offices. It was actually quite an interesting film, and I actually quite enjoyed it.
And somebody who worked in IT, I'm sure you appreciated what they did to the printer at the end.
Yes, yeah, no, the whole thing was just fantastic. I thought it was very of the moment. I really enjoyed it.
I agree. I think it's an excellent film, and if you can get on those TPS reports for me, that'd be great.
And it stood up all right.
Yeah, I'm sure it did.
But it's 26 years old. Obviously all the IT in it is quite dated, but actually it aged all right, I thought.
Well, fair play, and well done for watching it. And I've added to the show notes if anybody's interested. And they should watch it. And Idiocracy, I hope, is on the list still.
Yeah, no, all on the list, but I had to get these rom-coms in, so I didn't get through the whole list from last week's show.
Yeah, I think that is probably fair enough. I suppose we should move on and do some games.
Yeah, I just have not been gaming at all.
So the first one is just, we don't need to go into it in any great depth. It's just that the massive Game Pass hike we talked about last week is coming to pass. I think that Microsoft are saying these hikes are never fun. You're still going to get more games per prescription than other perks. But I think this is really going to harm Microsoft. Lots of people are on there for this kind of thing. And if you look at the cost of subscriptions altogether, you've got your Games Pass, you've got your Netflix, you've got your Amazon, you've got maybe Disney Plus as well, you might have Apple TV. Even though you like to pay for these things annually, you can't pay for all of them annually generally. And this is adding up. With the cost of living rising for all sorts of things, how are people going to be able to afford keeping 2 or 3 or 4 services going and still put food on the table, go out to the cinema, have a decent standard of living, pay the mortgage? All these kinds of things for your average income person are going to be a real struggle. And I just think Microsoft have got to be very careful in light of putting the console prices up too.
Yeah, I'd agree with you there. Look, my preference is to buy things annually, because you usually get a bit cheaper. And if I don't buy annually, I generally just buy it for a month or two, cancel it, and then wait a few months and then buy it for a couple more months, because it just feels like a lot of money just to have sat in the background. That's my personal view. Interestingly, my brother commented, crumbs, the Xbox Games Pass has gone up a lot. We got the Xbox because it was quite a cheap console for the children, and you got all these games, and it was like £10 a month, and now it's going to be a lot more than that. So people are noticing.
Yeah, it's going to impact them. Expensive console, expensive pass, and if you've got to make a choice at the end of it, do I want Disney Plus for the kids, or do I want to buy just the one game that the kids play all the time anyway, which might be Call of Duty, might be something we might talk about in a minute, or something else? Then the chances are you don't need that range of games, because I got to know, I know when I subscribed to it, I was almost paralyzed by indecision. There was too much choice, and I settled down on the 2 or 3 games that I wanted to play. And going back to that old-fashioned way of, I've got to drop an increasing amount of money on a game, but it's a game I'm going to play, Gran Turismo being a case in point, that I will continue to play for 6 months, a year, 2 years,
You can't beat Gran Turismo.
You can't beat Gran Turismo, but to be fair, they have kept it rolling, although I don't like the weekly tracks this week. Should talk about a game I bought.
Go on then.
So annoyingly, the video is not showing on this, but I picked up Battlefield 6. Battlefield 6 came out on Friday.
Which you were obviously going to buy.
I was always going to buy, because I think I've bought every Battlefield game, certainly going back to Bad Company 2. I did have the original Battlefield back in the day. I didn't really play it. I picked up Battlefield 2, but didn't have any friends online at that point, so it wasn't a massive draw to me. But since Bad Company 2, I've been a fan. I like my first-person shooters. I've obviously played COD the last few generations. And this has been agreed a return to form, I think it's fair to say. Battlefield 2142 was not great, released with very few maps, very few weapons, a story nobody really liked, and it was all a bit limited and poorly thought out. Battlefield games rarely launch well. There's often problems with the netcode, they call it, with sort of trying to get servers to talk to each other, registering things like hits and all the rest of it. This has launched well. I think the only issue I've seen on launch was the EA app refused to let people join the games, but if you bought it on Steam, PlayStation, Xbox, whatever, everything else was launching, just not the EA app. Battlefield have done the right thing by them. They've said anybody that couldn't play it on day one from the EA app is going to get a free, I think they're going to get some giveaway type stuff, and they're going to give them the first season pass for the game for free as well. So, I mean, it sounds like they've done the right kind of thing.
That's
the game
the
itself...
right thing to do, isn't it? You've had an issue. deal with it in the right way. That's really good.
It is. And I mean, the nice thing about Battlefield is you don't need to play it in the same way that you play other first person shooters. You don't need to have split second, it helps. But if you haven't got split second reflexes and you aren't a 12-year-old, you can actually still have a good time playing as a support player, chucking out ammo, reviving players, doing things other. And it's such a sandbox. If you just want to fly around in a helicopter, you can do that. If you want to be a transport helicopter, driver, ferrying troops around the map, you can do that. If you just want to shoot at tanks from a very long way away with your rocket launcher, you can do that. Or if you want to be the first person shooter and run around like your hair's on fire shooting at people, you can do that too. You'll die a lot, but you can do it. And a sort of a special mention for this is the destructibility they've built back into the game. In Battlefield Bad Company 2, you could take your rocket launcher and you could gradually take out almost every house on the map and fundamentally change how it played. Battlefield 6 lets you do that again. In fact, you can equip with a sledgehammer and you can go around and you can truly change the tactics of the game by taking out a floor and jumping it, flanking the people behind you. It's a very well thought out game. It seems to have been very well received. I've put Metacritic up rather than Rotten Tomatoes for a change. But the average score is in the 80s, I think, for the game. So far so good.
That is good, and the destructive environment reminds me of a game called Red Faction. I think Faction. I can't remember what it was called.
Faction.
And I used to quite enjoy that you could truly destruct the environment. It was quite cool.
Yeah, so you can do all that, and like I say, you can find a way to play it in a way that you like, and you can have a nice time. It's not cheap, mind. It was $69.99 on launch, and that's unfortunately the way games are these days.
Yeah, I pretty much expected that, I think.
Yeah, so there you go. I doubt very much you'll get around to Battlefield, but there's still stuff to come. There's a battle royale to come in the same way all the big games do that. Battlefield tried before in the Battlefield 2 day. No, Battlefield 2. What was the Second World War one? Battlefield 5? Battlefield 5 was Second World War based. People didn't like that because it had women fighting in the war and all the rest of it. And gamers are unfortunately not very accepting of change to things. But the Battle Royale was really poor. You needed to buy a copy of the game in order to play it, whereas every other Battle Royale is free. We've talked about the Call of Duty Warzone being free. We talked about the finals a couple of times in the game section. So the hope is Battlefield 6's Battle Royale will launch for free, and maybe you can have a play with it then.
Yeah, maybe we can give it a whirl. I'll be honest, I have barely turned on the PlayStation. Occasionally I've got on my Switch. I've been playing a bit of classic Doom because they've launched it for free on the Switch 2 for some reason. I've been playing Donkey Kong Bonanza or whatever it was called.
Yeah, fair enough. Should we do a main show?
Yep.
I don't think we need to go very long on this, but I think we just wanted to have a little conversation about the state of advertising in our platforms of choice. There was a story this week about people buying the new Amazon Echoes, so they're smart displays, which Amazon have never had a problem with advertising. If you pay for Amazon Prime, you see it.
Yeah, they are shameless in their advertising. I've not been afraid of advertising though, aren't they?
They are fairly shameless about it, but I think this is to a whole nother level, that the new Echo smart displays, Echo Shows as they're called, always showed a bit of ads. So if you had shopping lists and things like that, they'd show up, or ads for things on Alexa. I am continually frustrated on my when I go into the Amazon app to watch something about it trying to upsell me on Amazon Photos or something like that, trying to get me to do something else. But apparently the new devices that will on home screens, there's a huge increase in ads. They're showing ads for Alexa Plus, generative the new voice assistant, ads for shows that you're going to watch, ads for making use of that all the time, and they're taking over increasing amounts of real estate on the screens. And I mean, you just said it there. Are you surprised Amazon are really pushing advertising at you?
Yeah, not at all. My parents have an Echo Show and it's always got some form of advert on it. And because it's got that, I never look at the thing because I just assume it's going to show me an ad. I'm not really in the Amazon ecosystem, but it is frustrating, isn't it? I do have a Kindle and I will usually pay the 20 quid not to have the adverts on it. But I guess we just live in a world where we're blind to it now.
But we're not, though. So there are people, Verge journalists particularly, who have a number of these devices, and the journalist is seeing ads for elderberry herbal supplements, Quest sports chips, and tabletop picture frames, including in our personal photo library. So one of these devices, when you set them to show your photos, you'd expect it only to show your photos. Presumably, if there's a way to unlock that, then you'd do it. So that's fairly slimy.
That is a bit slimy.
But it made me think, is it really that different from what the rest of the industry is doing? So we have talked for a long time about Microsoft showing ads inside of the start menu. I'm trying to find the right link to the Verge article where we talked about this before. Here we are. where Microsoft was testing ads in the Windows 11 Start menu, and this was in 2024. And we've certainly seen that since. You and I have both installed Windows machines where we have seen advertising in the Windows Start menu, yeah?
Yep.
So this is a feature of the operating system. So you got them in Windows 10, you absolutely get them in Windows 11. The start bar, which sits in the center of the screen now, is polluted with these things. And if you actually click start on it, you'll see more adverts for Netflix, Spotify, whatever else, things within the Windows App Store, within the operating system. And they're making it worse by the fact that you can't now easily remove local account setup when you install Windows for the first time. And again, their justification for taking out, they call it OOBE, out of box experience, which used to be able to hit Alt F4, type in one command, and you'd be able to skip the internet account creation. You must have a Microsoft account in order to set up Windows. Corporately, you can do this because you can have a script or something that does it. Windows for Enterprises allows you to remove this. But any of the home version of Windows, Pro included, they're trying to make it even more difficult to do this. And they say they're doing it because users might miss vital setup screens. And what they mean by that is the ability to opt out of advertising.
Or the ability to give them money for their O365 subscription, because Windows does push hard on that. Like, oh, you need to set up, your Microsoft account with OneDrive and this and that and give us some money.
So I just think, is what Amazon is doing on their Echo devices all that different from what Microsoft is pushing on you? Because let's face it, as we talked about with the Windows version of free Outlook, they sell their ads to 616 or whatever it was favored partners to push all your data off in that direction too. So it's not just selling Microsoft products, it's selling your data about the usage of Microsoft products and how you use them to their carefully chosen advertising partners.
Yeah, you're right. And I put a link in the show notes as well to Microsoft Outlook, because if you have the free version of Outlook, the first thing in your inbox is an ad every time. There's an ad there, but it looks just like an email. I know it's got the word ad in a small square box, but to me, it just looks like I've got an unread email at the top, and that would drive me bonkers. And I get why they do it. They want you to pay to upgrade, and it's like a couple of quid a month or something, or you get adverts. But wow, it's bad. I think it's a bad look when Microsoft is scrapping around for a couple of quid.
But even when you pay it, the chances are you're going to get the adverts. Amazon have proven that. You pay in most cases. All right, people get Windows with their computer. But if you buy Windows, which people still do, and if they don't know what they're doing, they're still spending 160 quid for a Windows license, you'll still get adverts. So paying for it doesn't make it go away. I'm an Amazon Prime subscriber. I have to pay another amount again to have the adverts removed. Netflix has an ad-based tier these days. And even if you pay, you may see pre-roll. And we're going to talk about Apple in a minute. Google definitely do this. So I am a Gmail person as well. I use Gmail, not for all my email, but for some of it, the stuff I expect to get spam from. I don't pay for Gmail, therefore I am the customer. Therefore, one of my inboxes always has ads stuck into it. So I expect this behavior from Google. Microsoft are copying this behavior. Amazon are copying this behavior. It's, where does this end?
But it's interesting with Microsoft, though, because they're copying it for you using the client, not for using their email service. They might do it for their email service too, but they're also copying it because they're just using it if you're using their app, just the free app. That's their way of, I guess, paying for the free app.
Yeah, all of it is bad, is sort of the be-all and end of it. And then I'm going to struggle to show it a little bit, but Apple are doing this now too, aren't they? Let's face it.
But Apple only do, and I can show it on the screen because I've got a advert here in settings to buy Apple Care for my brand new iPhone because I haven't bought it yet. So Apple are doing it too, but they're only doing it to upsell their own services. They're not.
But how's that?
To sell others. It's not great, I agree, but I guess they're not selling it to third parties.
But how's that different from Microsoft trying to upsell you on Office 365 when you first launch Windows?
True. No, you're in that scenario. It's exactly the same. And what annoys me is, why have I got a red
notification
circle on the settings app that I can't remove, and it drives me bonkers.
Yeah, and then you take that to the next level, and they did in America when the F1 movie launched. They were pushing adverts for the F1 movie directly into people's wallets.
Yeah, that's not the Apple we expect, is it? It's not good.
So the conclusion I'm coming to is all of these companies are the same. Even if you pay for your iPhone, your Mac, your Android phone, your Microsoft device, your Amazon Echo, your Kindle, you're going to get ads pushed at you hard. And that's not going to get better.
No, it's getting worse. We're seeing it with streaming, aren't we? If you buy the base level streaming now, you get the one with ads. And it's like, well, surely that should be the free one. But you have to now pay more to get rid of ads. Like you say, it's not going to get any better, is it? This is just the tip of the iceberg.
Why should we have to deal with this? This is the thing. And again, when stuff like this starts happening, I look at my Linux PC and I think, I don't get any of this. All right, when I go on the web, of course, I'm bombarded with ads, but it's ridiculous for a device that you pay for on software that you control largely, where we're ceding control that we don't want to give away with the app stores and the marketplaces and the Windows Store and all the rest of it. We're ceding control, but being advertised back, at the time. And I can't believe that these companies, Apple is not short of a few quid, neither is Microsoft. Google is an advertising company. I can accept it from Google. Amazon is not short of a few quid. They do pretty well from logistics and selling you books and widgets and rebranded Chinese stuff. They do all right with this stuff. How much advertising do they actually need to do? It's just that services revenue, right?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it's horrible because you spend like £1,000 on a new iPhone, you boot it up, it's like, do you want Apple Arcade for free? Just sign up here. Do you want this? Do you want that? And it's like, stop it. Like, you're better than this. I don't get why they do it.
Yeah, and there is no escape, it seems to me. That it's only going to, and that, so I recommend again, if you get a Pi-hole, install AdBlock Plus, do all these kinds of things to stop receiving so many ads. If there's a service you want, then you should pay for it to try and remove yourself. So like The Verge, which we tolerate the odd ad on when I do this, it's put me off reading The Verge. I'm now using services like TechCrunch and things where I'm happy to see the odd advert to support that kind of service, but Kagi Search, for example, I was paying for, so I wouldn't, I'd have the good quality service that I want from that thing. I think if you pay for Netflix, pay for the service without the ad tier, if you can afford it. Amazon, I'm going to stop subscribing to because I refuse to pay for the ad tier because I genuinely don't think it's worth it.
No, agreed. Yeah, I concur. Amazon Prime Video is probably the one I watch the least on, I must confess.
Yeah, there's not a lot on there that you're really going to watch. And that's without even getting into the controversy that we should talk about next week, about the removing all the guns from the Bond posters.
Yeah, I just don't understand. I'm sorry.
Let's
talk. Watch the show, you're going to see a gun. Like, what are you doing?
It's kind of his signature thing.
Yeah, it's a bit. Yeah, the logo is literally a gun. Like, I just don't get it.
App of the week.
Let's do the app of the week.
So my first thing is a service called Alternative 2. The idea with this, they've obviously got sort of a newsy, bloggy page up at the start, but if you're trying to find an alternative service to something like Microsoft Office, and you put it into Alternative 2, it will suggest alternatives to something. So let's go with OneDrive. What alternatives are there to OneDrive? Well, there's Nextcloud or SyncThing or Box or Dropbox or Google Drive or whatever, and it will suggest a really sort of useful range of alternatives to the thing it is that you're looking for, with all the links, whether it's open source or not, whether you got to pay for it. It's just a really handy little reference and website if you're trying to look up something that is an alternative to the product that you think you might be stuck with.
No, that's quite cool, isn't it? Here you go, here's all the alternatives. Like, fantastic. I like that.
Yep. It's a really good little service. I've used it a lot, particularly when you're looking for that open source thing. And I think you can filter them by just show me the open source things, just show me the paid things, just show me the enterprise things. It's a really useful little service.
Yeah, no, that's cool. I like that.
There you go. I've come up with a good one for once. And your thing of the week?
Thing of the week, so I've done one a bit random. I've done the new Microsoft Office icons, which if you scroll down slightly, you'll see them through the years. I didn't realise they were rebranding Office a little bit, just with some updated icons with some better colours in them. But after some of the travesty of the Apple icons recently, I thought, actually, these are pretty good. And it's a bit sad when you see a Windows 11 machine now with these nice new icons on it that aren't all in rectangle boxes, got some transparency in their different shapes. And then you go and look at them on your iPad or your Mac. It's like, why is everything in a square and it's got a rubbish background colour? Why can't it be transparent, have a bit of character about it? I just think they've actually done a reasonable job of, they're obviously all on a theme, but I think they've modernised them in quite a nice way. And I thought, fair play to Microsoft, they've got better icons than Apple these days.
What is the one in the middle here?
That's PowerPoint.
I can see Word. I can see
PowerPoint and Excel.
Yeah, PowerPoint doesn't look like PowerPoint to me there.
It's because all we look at is charts in PowerPoint. I think that's what they're trying to tell us.
I'm going back to look at the evolution of PowerPoint. Yeah, I kind of get it. The fact that
they kind of went
not
circular
sure
in the last one, but they've kind of lost the slide a little bit there.
I think what's that? I can't quite read the timeline on that. 2013 is kind of the best evolution of all of these for me. It was clear what they were.
Yeah, no, I just quite like the new color palettes. I like they're not all squares. I just think they look kind of cool. I've got a few of them popped up on my iPad this week. I just like they're doing something, and it looks cool.
Fair enough. Slightly out there, designy choice type thing, but there we go. I think we can call that a show, Chris.
Let's do it. So if anyone wants to get in contact with us, Rod is on Mastodon. He's at g5maniac at mastodon.scot. He's also on Blue Sky, where he's at g5maniac.bsky.social. I'm on Mastodon, where I'm at _CGP at mastodon.social. You can watch on YouTube by going to our website, click on the YouTube link. You can drop us an email at wakefromsleep@protonmail.com.
Talk to you next week, Chris.
Cheers, Rod.